Clash of Clans podcast, OG, episode 45. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am your host, Scotty 827, joined live in studio, well, sort of, today by a very exciting guest, ShocK. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Welcome, man. I'm really excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of share my story and a little bit about myself. I've never actually really done this before. I've answered a couple random questions in videos, but I've never been able to really dive in. And I know that there are some people that are curious. So
yeah, have you told your player story before? Like where you came from? Just not like as a whole.
Yeah, when I hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, I did a little Q&A type thing, but I obviously in like a 10 or 15 minute video, I can only say so much, right? I wasn't able to answer a whole lot of questions. So I got into it a little bit, but I'm sure this will be much more informative and in depth. People will get to know me at a much better level than they were on that video. So
cool. Oh, awesome. I'm excited. If you haven't heard of ShocK, you will, and you have now, because I've been hearing about you all over. You were a very in-demand guest, and I've been watching your content, and even last night on the streams, is that a ShocK attack they were talking about? So,
fair.
Yeah, and looking back at your videos, it seems like it was about 8 months ago that that your channel started up.
Yeah, it was about 8 months ago. Yeah, last May or something like that.
So how about little baby ShocK the Clasher? When did ShocK start off?
Yeah, so I actually started playing the game, oh man, like 2013 or 2014, like every other nerd in his parents' basement with my brother.
Okay, yeah.
I kind of took breaks for a while. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say I was fully an adult nerd in my basement playing that game, so...
Yeah, well, I am now, so yeah, I know what you mean.
Excellent.
But yeah, I kind of took breaks from the game in and out for a long time until about 2021 or so. Maybe actually might have been a little earlier than that. I'm sure the pandemic had something to do with me getting into the game a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I never really took the game seriously competitive until I was able to kind of max out my account, quote unquote. Because obviously I didn't have access to all of the offensive tools to be able to pull off those attacks until I was maxed out, which that happened about maybe a year before I started YouTube. And that's when I started going a little bit from clan to clan, trying to find my place. And I'm a very curious person, and I also love to share like knowledge and information that I really enjoy, which the game falls right under that category. And so like even in Discord servers for my clans that I had been a part of, I used to make little quick tip videos just for them in
That's cool.
in those Discords. And then eventually they kind of talked me into starting a YouTube channel. They were just like, you should just upload your Legend League hits and just see where it goes. And that, honestly, that's kind of what started the whole thing.
Well, and it's fun too. And I kind of think, even like with the podcasting, it's kind of like a itch you almost have to scratch. Right. It's like something you want to do. And the only one of the problems with your videos is you make it exciting. So I'm looking at this and you're getting kind of ramped up or you're and the one I was just watching, I'm getting like 4 minutes. I'm like, okay, I got to go try mine really quick and go back over and get all fired up to go do my attack. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because I get very animated sometimes.
Yeah, and then the other ones, there was like, you're just like calm as a cucumber, which is just frankly wild to me, because to me, I looked at your timer and I'm like, I can't believe this attack is done. For me, it's all panic and chaos, but it looks fine on there, but you just look so cool.
I think it's probably the Rocket Loom Fireball attacks you're talking about. That's just the one that I am the most comfortable with. And so I know if there's 45 seconds left and I still have quite a bit of the base left, I know it cleans up really quickly with a bunch of rock. Like I've been in this situation so many times that I kind of know what and where I need to do things.
I'm like, I don't think I'll ever be that calm. I should maybe just walk away from this game.
Comes the time. Yeah.
So you were curious about, and oh, sorry, you had so you maxed out your full base before really like going competitively.
Yeah, maybe this sounds a little odd, but I feel like it wasn't my place to try to teach people if I couldn't pull the attacks off myself, and when I didn't have maxed heroes or things like that, it made it hard, right? So
Yeah.
but
So
yeah, that maybe is.
so you were kind of like, maybe once I get there, then
Yeah,
that YouTube
yeah.
might be a kind of a cool avenue for me.
Yeah, and YouTube's always been something I've thought about doing in the back of my mind for probably almost a decade with other games I played too. But it just because I do get kind of obsessive about the things that I'm passionate about, and so I like to dive head first and not
Yeah.
dip my toes in the water.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, that's
It's
just kind of how
cool.
I am.
I think too, like looking at the content, like there's lots of different avenues you get to explore too, because you can do your legend videos and you can do your, strategy or whatever, like kind of caters to any approach you want to do, really.
Yeah. And honestly, yeah, you're exactly right. There are a ton of different ways that you could start a channel. Like mine, I think I gear a little bit more towards um, teaching people higher tier armies a little bit, maybe tutorial-esque, just with my Legend League kits and things. But there are people that do kind of the easier spam attacks, which, I mean, nothing wrong with that because they get a ton of views as well. There's also people like Judo Slot that cater their target or their audience to everybody at every town hall level, which mine definitely is not that. So yeah, there's a bunch of different directions you could go. There's even like some builder base and clan capital YouTubers that do really well.
Yeah, and even with and even on your channel, and I think even if I'm not using your armies, though, I'm taking away your principles, like in the things that you're thinking about, too,
Yeah.
which is really cool. So let me ask you this then: when did you know that you had some skill?
When I first maxed out my accounts, I was in a clan called White Blood for a little while, and that was the clan that I really started kind of taking the game seriously. When I had kind of caught up to, I was in the middle of the pack in that clan, and once I started getting towards the top and quickly started becoming one of the better players in the clan, that's when I wanted to take the game a little bit more seriously. But at that time, they were a little bit more laid back. And so I decided I would look for a new, maybe more intense clan. And when I joined a Champion 1 clan called the Hog Pit, I quickly became one of the better players there. So I had never, before going to the Hog Pit, I had no experience with a higher level clan or intense CWLs or anything like that. Because I think White Blood was probably like Master 2 or 3.
Ooh.
And so when I quickly became one of the better players at the Hog Pit, I was like, there might be something to this.
You tasted blood in
And
the
that
water.
maybe, yeah, exactly. That's when I was like, I should actually, maybe that I wasn't as confident as I maybe should have been in my skills because I had just joined a big clan for me, right? In Champion 1. But yeah, as I kind of blossomed there, that's when I realized there's probably something I could do with this.
Were you nervous joining?
Oh yeah, I remember doing the tryouts and stuff because they make you go there and do some friendly challenges. And luckily at that time, I never really was the Root Rider spammer. I've always kind of geared away from spam armies, but I did the Zapquake Root Riders back when I joined there, and I was able to get in. And then I remember actually the time
Got your
that
jacket.
I felt like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I remember the time that I felt like they had faith in me as a player was it was the second CWL that we had with the Hog Pit. They had like 3 different clans, and depending on how you performed in war, they would put you in which CWL you would go in, right? Obviously, the main one, it's Champion 1, is intense for the best players. And they had somebody drop out last minute and asked if I would sub for their main clan. And that was when I was like, okay, they start to see a little bit of potential in me as well.
You got thrown in the big game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you proved yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how did
made me feel good too.
So. That's cool though. That's a great story to kick off the career of the competitive career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how did you start to like, is your talent like more natural from like other games, or did you start to like dial into strategy on YouTube or what?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. I have always been into kind of the more strategy-based games and never really played any of the games where you can kind of turn your brain off and do nothing. Like I've never really been into
Yeah.
first-person shooter games, even though I'm sure there's a lot of strategy in those as well, right?
Right.
But like StarCraft 2, I don't know if you know much about that. I was really into that. And that one is a very sweaty game. Like just the amount of
Intense.
focus, like you cannot put any attention anywhere else but that game if you want to be good.
Really.
And yeah, it's a very difficult game. But yeah, so I really like that strategy type game. But I also did watch a lot of YouTube. I remember probably Lexnos was the one that I watched the most to learn um, the strategies and the armies that the pros were using. Which at Town Hall 15, which is kind of when I started to come into my own, was like the E-Titan smashes
Ooh.
and things like that. So
Were you always a ground? Are you a ground person? Are you more? What do you favor?
oh, yeah, I think I've always been a little bit more ground focused, but I really do like the rocket loom fireball attacks. So yeah, that one, I don't know if you can really count that as air, because it's not really,
Yeah.
but a little bit.
Well, and I kind of use some of that elements of that for my little Super Bowler combo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like it's a little more. I think maybe like it's well, but the warden's on air, I guess, right? In that attack or
On the
no?
rocket loom fireball attack, no, he's on ground.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'd put it in. It's a weird category.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of a mix between. But I do some Lalo, not anymore at Tunnel 17 because Lalo it kind of died, but um,
And then
yeah,
so
I did like Lalo.
and so you're like you're watching these videos. Uh, you're starting to. Are you starting to like see it like? Are you playing more for legend from like the start, or are you kind of focused on war? Um,
I liked War a lot more at Town Hall 15 because it wasn't always guaranteed that you could win or tie, which happens almost every war now. So it's hard to take it very seriously now, but I think Legend League is a much better way to determine how good you are as a player right now.
and you started.
So
Did you start that at 15, or did you wait to 17 to?
I probably started right at the end of 15, beginning of Town Hall 16 is about when I started getting into Legend League and taking that a little bit more seriously. So right about when the equipment came out.
And okay, okay. So you kind of then you start to switch over. So I'm newer to Legends, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I came back and I was a 13, so I made a ton of progress. I'm a 17 now, and started Legends this last month. So I'm kind of seeing this whole different side, and I think it's a whole different game that I kind
Yeah.
of was missing, which is really kind of exciting. Um, and do you still war? Are you guys still like doing like tons of war
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah. We wore back to back. So always the warheads and things, which I think the reason that Legend League will determine which players are better than War or CWL is because you have a very limited amount of time to assess the base and come up with a plan. And so you've got to be very comfortable with the army that you're using. And in War, obviously, you can have people scout before you or take unlimited amount of time basically to dissect the base and come up with a plan. But in Legend League, it definitely throws you into the fire. So
Yeah, you kind of have to be like a ninja,
yeah,
like any
yeah,
tool, like you've got your just whatever tools you got with you, which I think I do a little bit better in that realm, just because I don't. Maybe it's just self doubt. I don't know, um, but it's really exciting. So, are you like making gains then at Town Hall 15 and 16 in Legends? Like,
yeah. I took Legends maybe seriously enough to get all of my 8 hits in every day, but I never really tried to get into the top a certain amount of players or anything until I started YouTube. That's when I was like, I should probably give it my best and at least try just to see what I can do.
and how did that
Um,
change your everyday?
well, I
So,
think
you know what I mean? Like, so now you've kind of got probably like from like a casual clasher, more intense, starting
yeah,
YouTube. Is there a
yeah,
lot of
absolutely.
pressure to?
A little bit, yeah, because I feel like, and I don't think that anybody else, well, probably there are some, but not as many people as you might think, assume that like if I can't do really well at Legend League, then my YouTube channel doesn't have the authority that it should, right? If that makes sense, right? Like people might
Yeah.
not take my channel as seriously if I can't do okay in Legend League with these armies. So that's maybe one like mental thing that you have to struggle with a little bit is I know that if I struggle in Legend League, people might not take it as seriously, but
Yeah. Yeah, or they kind of go, all right, he's seeing like he's one of us, like the
yeah.
struggle is real, right? Not
But at the
just
same
like,
time, I do like to show when I fail and struggle and stuff because I want people to have a good idea of whether the armies that I'm using are actually legitimately okay to use in Legend League or not. So I try to give you like an unbiased version of things, but at the same time, obviously I want to do really well.
yeah,
So it's,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that's important too because otherwise it kind of creates unrealistic expectations. And
Yeah.
even like I did a memorial event, and some of the best attackers, and I go into the event, and not everybody's 3-starring right on the first attempt.
Yeah.
And but on YouTube in retrospect it would really look like that. And my first attack I was really, really nervous, and then I saw that and I'm like, oh, okay, it looks like a normal war, so seeing that and then seeing how you like um the mistakes are probably what we learn from just as much, if not
Oh
more.
yeah, absolutely. I think probably one of the ways that if people want to get better at the game, would be to watch your own replays of your fails. I think people in general understand more about the game than they think, and you will absolutely see very obvious mistakes that you're making in your replays where you fail, and you'll be able to tell yourself mentally the next time, okay, I need to
Yeah.
avoid doing this way because it failed for me last time. So
And
watch your replays, people.
that's something that I am doing more, and I think I don't- I wasn't really going to take Legends too seriously or whatever, but just I think the nature of it is like, ooh, okay, it's like your mini war every day, right? Kind of like your mini war
Yeah.
with yourself, I feel like. Um and so now I'm like I feel like it's getting an advantage, giving me advantage in war, and I'm starting to see the practice pay off. I've still got to get my heroes up a few more levels, but it's exciting. And looking at my attack log and hearing about like the best players, it's and even like I guess like where you're at, it is cutthroat, right? It
Yeah,
is.
you fell one or two attacks a day and you're going to go negative. That's
And so what do you start? I mean, you've got to start like right at the beginning, right, like of the month, like.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the month, everybody in Legend League resets to 5,000 trophies exactly, even if
Yeah.
you're Town Hall 13 or 14 or whatever. So some of like the first 2 days of Legend League are always kind of, you just weed out the lower level players, and like the Town Hall 17s usually jump ahead a little bit while the Town Hall 15s and lower struggle because they're paired with all of these higher people. But I would say after about 5 days is when it becomes a legitimate test and a little bit more cutthroat. But the last week for sure, when people really start to take Legend League seriously and they really want to set personal best records, and uh, some clans offer rewards if you hit certain trophy milestones, so they start to take it more seriously that way. So the last week is when it really becomes cutthroat, and you just, if you fail once, sometimes that's all, you're going to go negative. It's a little frustrating, but yeah.
Do you feel like that from the beginning of the month, like?
No, I know for the first probably week or two, I don't have to take it too seriously. Obviously, it's nice to climb faster, but it really, it's going to be the last 2 weeks that really determine how highly you're going to rank, and the last weeks especially.
And then the pressure's dialed up to 11.
Yeah, yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
and so when do you, so like you're getting into YouTube, when are you starting to like really hit legend, like
Well,
really hit it? Was it
I
right
think,
away? I mean,
yeah, I would say as soon as I started the YouTube channel, I was like, I should probably take it a little bit more seriously. And then I remember I was doing the Rocket Loom Fireball attack well, almost before anybody else. I wasn't the one who came up with it, but I was using it consistently, probably before just about anybody else on YouTube.
Popularized it.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of that. I was a tiny, tiny channel at the time, but I'm sure I did have a little bit of an effect on it. But I remember one day I got to rank number 3 in the world with Rocket Loom Fireball. And no one else was really using it at that time.
Wow.
And that's what started to get me a little bit of attention, I think, because that video, when I got to rank number 3, was my first video that did well for me at the time.
Talk about publicity, huh?
Yeah. And I even told the clan leader, I was like, put my YouTube channel in the description right now so people can see.
That's cool.
And he did.
That's awesome. What about, like, what do the bases look like? I mean, so do you start at that point? Are you do you design your own bases? Do you buy bases? Do you have,
No,
like...
I have bought bases in the past. Right now, it's to the point where this sounds so weird to say because I'm not used to having an audience or a lot of people know who I am and stuff. But it's to the point where if I raid people or people raid me in Legend League, they know who I am and they'll screenshot my bases and send them to people that will build my base. And if I pay for bases now, they get burnt and people will have access to them within like 24 hours. So it's not worth it for me to buy them anymore because they just get wasted kind of anyway. But
that means you have Clash paparazzi.
Yeah, a little bit. That's what I think, because I get screenshots sometimes like, this guy found your base, and I'll look at the base and I'm like, what the heck? I just barely posted that one like 24 hours ago. How did they already? All right.
So you're switching them out?
Yeah, very frequently. About every day, or probably 2 days or maybe 3 is the longest I'll leave a base active. But yeah, I switch them out pretty frequently.
You test it pretty hard before you put it out, or you?
I do. The unfortunate thing about testing bases is once I put them into my account, right, I have to wait 24 hours before I can rate them in a friendly challenge. So that really hurts my ability to really determine whether they're great or not, which if I'm trying to switch things out quickly. But I do read my own bases all the time. So I'm very familiar with all of them.
Do you run like the same army, or how do you? That was kind of one of my questions. I was watching one of your videos, and I think you were attacking on one of your accounts, and then you said, "Yeah, I'm going to bring this into Legends." Do you work on an army? Kind of. That's how I kind of roll. Is like I'd like to have my one army, and like a ninja, and be able to do that. Like, what's your process with that?
Yeah. So as far as armies go, the only army that I've ever been able to do consistently for a long period of time is the Rocket Loom Fireball attack, because it is one that takes a little bit more skill, and it's fairly unique in terms of you're going to attack every base a little bit differently. Whereas with most other attacks, it feels almost you copy and paste it just on every base. And because of that, I get bored of armies very quickly. And so I do switch things out quite a bit, but I usually do have 1 or maybe 2 different armies that I feel the most comfortable with. And I'll use those usually on my main account. And then my mini account, it's fairly close to being max. That's the one that I try all of the newer stuff with. Which funnily enough, I'm actually doing better with my mini account right now than I am with my main.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you say that in your video that you did that, and I was like, oh man, now I have a second account, Town Hall 8, I think, ways to go, but I was like, oh yeah, that would be a really nice way to do that, because as I found myself in Legends, it's like, it's hard to practice, right? And I can do friendlies and stuff, but when I just would hang out on the cusp of Legend and just try to find really hard bases, and hit over and over, just because it's like random, to test things or whatever. But so when did your YouTube take off?
If I look at the growth, like on the little app and things like that, there's not ever really a stark jump anywhere. It just it's almost linear. I mean, it does increase a tiny bit as you get bigger, but it's never really a giant. So it's just kind of slowly over time, just consistently uploading. Yeah. So it was, I don't think I ever really got like a big giant break or a really viral video that kind of kickstarted me off. I have some that do well at times, but again, it's not ever huge.
What do you like about making them?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think my favorite part about making YouTube videos is I get excited sharing things that I'm learning with other people. And I think people can probably sense that a little bit in the videos when I do get animated or excited.
Sure.
It's like there was a video I did just a few days ago where somebody shared with me like a really insane, there's a term called sui where you
Oh yeah, I saw that
sacrifice.
video. Yep.
Yeah. You sacrifice your heroes and get a bunch of value, and 3 heroes in the siege machine can take out 70% of the base. And you can see me getting excited in the videos, trying to share this with people. It's so I really enjoy sharing that with other people. I thought I actually had some people tell me that I should gatekeep that army. Like, no, you should keep it for yourself and for the clan, and maybe share it a little bit later on so that we can use it and not have everybody know about it. So I do get that little bird in my ear sometimes, but I get too excited. I just
yeah, it's your art, probably.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
exactly.
That's where that question came from, because you got excited about that army, and I think you went into you were talking about it, and I kind of, it was out of context for me, I think, like at the time, and so you said this is a new army you're trying out, and or something, and you started doing really well with it, and I thought, I'm just never going to be able to do that in Legends, where I can just take a brand new army and walk in and kick somebody's butt. But it was fun to see that and see where you were struggling too, or whatever, and kind of looking back at what you should have done was
I did fail the last hit. And even it's kind of fun to watch people in the comments. Actually, I get a lot of help from the comments, believe it or not. I'll get ideas from people that comment on the videos all the time where I read it and I'm like, oh yeah, that actually would have made a lot of sense to do in this situation, or I should make this change to the army because that makes this aspect a lot better. So shout out to all the people that comment those ideas. I do read them.
Yeah, because you see something and then you go, oh, I didn't even notice that, and maybe I dropped something that I hadn't thought about. I could get a little bit more value, or
exactly. Yeah.
So like you're going, you're talking about this, right? Like, and this is a big difference with Legend, and I got it before, right? Because before I went into Legend, I get that like you're just farming and you only have 30 seconds, but you only get 8 attacks in Legend. It's just kind of built in like prestige and stuff. What are some of and so you have to make these decisions really, really quick, right? Like you get in there and there's a lot of high stakes, because if you lose your recall or if you lose your RC or whatever, what did you learn that has most helped you in like diagnose or base IDing, or like what are the things that you are like most looking for when you get into something like that really quick space?
Yeah. So obviously every base, so maybe I'll give this as context so that people can kind of understand what I'm talking about. There, especially with how offensively based the game is right now, it's about as easy to 3-star right now as it ever has been. There's no such thing as a perfect base, right? You have bases that defend against certain attacks better than others, and they'll deliberately cater the base to defend popular attacks while it will be weak to other ones. And let me actually give one example. And this is one reason why Rocket League Fireball is really good right now, is because to defend against those Royal Champion charges and things, people are starting to run double invisibility bases or an Invis and Rage core in the middle of the base, and the Fireball counters those bases just like a hard counters it. It is so good against those kinds of bases, but almost nobody's doing the Rocket League Fireball attack. So people are choosing to.
They're going more
I don't really,
right?
I don't really care to defend against the Rocket League Fireball because nobody's doing it. I want to defend against the Royal Champion charges. So as you, and this is where I'm going with this, as you start to raid bases more and more, you'll identify the weaknesses of those bases and get comfortable enough analyzing where the how you need to do the attack start to finish. There are, a few different kinds of common bases like diamond or ring or box bases. And as you become familiar with how those work, you get you just kind of enter the base immediately knowing, okay, I just need to funnel my king to the middle and I'll get this one good. Or I need to handle the CC in this, or you just become comfortable with how to tackle each base. And obviously every base is a little bit different, but you get it. You can almost start off like at the 50-yard line, so to speak, right? Like you already kind of have an idea. You just have to come up with the rest of the plan. So getting all 8 of your Legend Link hits in every day is probably the best way that you're going to become comfortable raiding versus popular bases, just because you're going to be doing it over and over again, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so probably just getting all of your rates in every day, getting comfortable with the different style bases. And that's going to give you the best.
Do you think there's like universal objectives, like when you're IDing it, I was watching with you and Dark, and I want to get the monolith, or I'm going to get this. What is it that you are like, these are my absolute things, or will that change a little bit based on army?
Yeah. So I think it would change quite drastically.
Oh, I guess
depending on the army. Yeah. So like with that Sui army that I showed off a little bit, and I actually do that again in today's video, and I actually talk about this a little bit in today's video. Basically, if you can get your king to the middle of the base and use his ability in the middle of the base, you're going to restart. But if you can't, it's going to struggle. And so do whatever you can to get your king into the middle. So if you need to use your royal champion a little earlier on and maybe delay putting your king down, or if you need to put the angry jelly on the king so that he targets defenses, whatever you need to do to get the king to go to the middle of the base is going to grant you a 3-star. But if I'm using the Rocket Loom Fireball attack, my targets are the clan castle, probably number 1. The monolith is right up there with like the fire spitters, and then the town hall is an okay target. Sometimes people run the town hall right now where it's kind of isolated from everything else, unless it's right in the core. But so it depends on the army. It depending on the army that you use, your objective for taking things out with your heroes is going to be quite different, I would say.
Is there any defense you just hate, like dealing with? Is there something that you favor just hating or like hitting? Like I don't like the spitters very much. But
if you're doing like a warden charge or a charge of any kind, the fire spitters outrange. Like the range is just insane. So those can become difficult, but luckily you can do the fireball. The monolith is always pretty scary. But the clan castle is the thing I hate the most. That's the most difficult thing to deal with by far, probably on any attack.
And that was the thing in the video that the other thing that, because I'm like, the clan castle, is it just because of the HP? Like that's something I haven't, I just think about them like just whatever's coming out of it. But are you talking about like the physical CC too?
A little bit, yeah. It's a fairly tanky building, but as far as like what's inside of it is what's the scariest thing. Because what I don't want to happen is for my warden to get frozen up by 3 ice golems when he's in range of a monolith or the town hall, because then I'm going to have to use all of my spells to keep him alive, and then I won't have any for anywhere else in the base. So I hate dealing with the clan castle with my warden. I would do everything in my power to keep him away from that or fireball it.
Well, that's good to know, because I like, as you get into like getting, you hear about these different strategies, and I come back to the one, what do you favor? And so you hear about these different pieces from all over, right? And it kind of becomes all these different layers, right? That, okay, do this and do this and do this. And I've been sticking with the idea in guiding, like, where do I want to deal with this CC? And so I'm glad to know that it's like right on track with that, right? Like, because you look at the shots or the fire spitters, you look at everything, but it's good confirmation for me to know that where I'm going to deal with it is still equal important with all these new defenses and stuff.
Yeah, I would say, and most base builders are very good about putting the clan castle in a location where it's going to cause you the most amount of headache whenever it's drawn. So like if you're doing the Root Rider attack or the Bullers, it's put in a spot specifically to freeze you up while the fire spitters are in range, or the town hall or the monolith. So it's going to have the maximum amount of damage while you're frozen up. Or to just trip you up, because sometimes people will put like a bunch of super minions in their clan castle, and if you're not paying attention, all it takes is a couple seconds and your warden's going to die. Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, I don't know. I think when I was watching that video, I thought you meant the actual building, and I was like, "Am I missing something about the building?"
It does have a lot of health, but yeah, it's what's inside. Yeah.
What do you think about Town Hall 17 now that we're there, like, and kind of where we're at in the game with everything?
I think that it's actually in a fairly good spot. I think it's slightly more difficult than Town Hall 16, but not as difficult as Town Hall 15, not nearly, which is, I think, exactly what Supercell wants, based on things that they've said. The heroes do feel, now granted, I have access to all of my heroes on my main account are maxed, as well as all of the equipment. So it's hard for me to, I understand that I'm a very, very small fraction of the players that have access to that. So when I say that heroes
you're the top
strong,
1%.
Yeah, not everybody's going to have that. So I try to be careful when I say that, but yeah, if you do have maxed equipment, it does feel very strong.
The equipment or the heroes themselves?
The hero. Well, it's the equipment. The heroes, if you had to run weaker equipment, yeah. So like hard mode fixes a lot of that because it caps the level of the equipment. I don't know if you knew that.
Yep.
So yeah, the hard mode definitely does make it much more difficult.
Do you think it would help if they had like an equipment potion?
Yeah, and they actually they do those snacks or whatever, right? That they do it. So that's kind of, I'm sure that's a ton of fun for everybody that has lower level equipment that can try it out at a max level for a short period of time. But yeah, I think that, one issue is that for people that want to level up their epic equipment, which is the equipment most of the time that's going to be the really OP, for lack of a better term, part of the army, is the bottleneck is the starry war. And people really struggle. If you're a free to play player, it's going to take you 2 months to max out one equipment. And there's 8 now almost, or something. There probably is 8. Is there 2 per hero? Yeah, there is. So it's going to take you a long time. And so one thing, and I understand that Supercell's a business, right? They want to make the most amount of money that they can, which rightfully so. I don't fault them at all for trying to be like that. But you do have to create some sort of happy longevity with the players to keep people interested or happy. There's a medium, right? You have to kind of do a little bit of both in order to get the most of both. And so one thing that I think they could do is include you know how they have for CW Elementals, a hammer of heroes or hammer of building. You could do a hammer of equipment, where you could use a hammer of equipment and just increase one level. And you could save it for a level that matters, like with Starry War.
Ooh, that's
I think that would help a lot with some of the free to play players, to help them level up equipment. And it also, but it wouldn't speed them up enough to where Supercell feels like they're not getting their money's worth, so to speak, right? I feel like that would be a good happy medium, or other little things like that.
Well, they're gonna have to speed something up or give us something where it increase. If every time you introduce more equipment, maybe it's lowering the cost even, or something, because I'd imagine I came back into the game about a year ago, and if I would come in now, I think I'd be pretty overwhelmed to be like, wow, I've got all this equipment to do. I've got all these things. I'm never going to get there. And that kind of isolates you on some of the attacks and things that you can watch on YouTube, okay, I can't do 100%. The fireball attack then, which
it's one of the frustrating things for free to play players, especially if you took a break, really especially, is you almost have to accept one of 3 outcomes. One, you're going to have to spend an insane amount of money to get all of your equipment, because it's $15 per equipment or something like that in the shop.
Yeah.
And that's not even including leveling them up. So you're just an insane amount of money. 2, just accept the fact that you're never going to be able to use the big armies the way the pros use them, or it's just going to take you a few years in order to catch up if you want to do it somewhat free to play, which all 3 are not good options if you're getting back into the game. Which is I think the loot chests help a little bit with that because I know I saw a lot of people in my Discord sharing screenshots about epic equipment, and they're like, "Oh, now I can try out this army that you've been showing off," which is good. I like that.
But then they went away.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which I don't think they should include loot boxes in the game that you can pay for. I don't think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
That feels like a little bit like gambling. So
I guess maybe like the challenge, like those challenges, right? Like they had those chests and stuff or the bites, but then we haven't really seen them very much
yeah,
since then. But I really enjoyed that because you could do some different things that you couldn't really do before that.
yeah.
What would you like to see added? I mean, what would you change to kind of? I mean, is there something else that you would like do? Like, do you think, we talked about maybe doing like an ore mine, maybe more
that's a good idea too. Yeah.
or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe even including a tiny bit of starry ore in the daily bonus that you get, because right now you don't get any.
Yeah.
Or making it more difficult to come to a tie in a regular war. Like maybe if both teams get perfect, which happens probably more than 50% of the time with our clan, then it goes based on time or based on who got to the perfect stars first or whatever the draw breaker might be. Because right now you don't get as many starry ores if you tie. So that would make it a little bit more competitive and more, it would motivate more people to actually try hard in war because you would have to if you wanted to win. So there's a few other ways that you can make war more interesting, as well as reward the players that win with a little bit more ores, because if you tie, you don't get as many ores.
Yeah, we've been doing like an ore war during CWL where we'll go over and war, try to get more of that ore.
I
think that just rhymed, I think.
Yeah. The ores are by far, and it's not even a close second place, the most, or the equipment, I guess, but from the ore, the most offensively strong thing in the game right now. Like it is so much more important to level up your hero equipment than it is even the hero levels themselves or the troop levels themselves. It's going to make your offense so much stronger, so much more quickly than the other things. And so that's why players are frustrated, right? Because they feel like they can't have access to all of that stuff.
It's like the final frontier, really, of
it really is.
Like holding back, like because I'll look at some attacks, right, and I'll go, okay, yeah, this is just not up to that level, and then what do I prioritize? And then I get to the one, and then there's a new attack or a new meta, or I want to try even to see which one at whatever level, if I'm gonna love it, because that's so many resources to put into it.
Like my little brother plays the game quite a bit, and he had saved up ores for a little while because he didn't know exactly where he wanted to spend them. He doesn't want to spend ores on an equipment that's going to be nerfed in the future. And so he just kind of sat on them for a while. And then eventually he decided to sink all of them into the fireball and a little bit into like the spiky ball and stuff. And then the electro boots came out right after that. And he's like, I should have just waited, because now his electro boots are like level 9. And they're definitely the best equipment in the game right now. They can work with any army.
Was the story of my early Clash life. All those things happen, maxing out a troop and then the next troop drop, you know what I mean? Like in terms of time. So now when I have an impulse, I kind of just try to deny all my natural impulses in terms of upgrades and just kind of hold it and think about it for a really long time. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. And so if anybody listening to this, wants to know my opinion on what you should do. One, I don't think they're ever going to be able to nerf the fireball in a reasonable way, because the really good players with it, obviously they can do some insane things, but there's a lot of risk with the fireball. If it goes south, it ruins your raid. But the amateur players, or like the average players that are just kind of here to have fun, they're not able to use the fireball very well. So if Supercell did nerf the fireball, it would make it almost unusable for most of the player base. So I don't see a way where Supercell could ever nerf the fireball. So I think you're safe putting ores into the fireball. And almost the same thing with the electro boots. I feel like it's a lot like the Root Riders, where it's the kit that makes the electro boots so good, and not necessarily the passive stats. So even if they do decrease the range of the aura or the damage or the self-healing, it's still going to be an insanely good piece of equipment.
I, I remember using it at a level 11, and right when it came out, and I said, I'm just going to try it right now. And I thought, if this is max, if they max it out and nerfed it to this, I think I'd be all right.
Yeah,
because it felt like I was getting a lot more value for it.
Yeah, it is such a strong piece of equipment, and the electro boots have a lower barrier to entry than most of the other equipment. You can use it at such a low level and still have insane benefits with it. Compared to like with a fireball, that's definitely not the case. You have to have it leveled 18 for it to be good, as well as other epic equipment, right? The spiky ball doesn't really become good until like at least 15 or 18 or 21 even. And then at 27 is when it one-shots the spell towers. So that's when it really, really becomes good. So yeah, electro boots definitely very, very good from an early on level. So even if your electro boots are level 1, you could still make it work, because the skeletons that Royal Champion doesn't get distracted by, that's a huge benefit just right off the bat.
A dropper through, skellies are coming, and you're depending how you're using her. I love that. What's another piece of so I guess this is probably like your most valuable equipment, right? Fireball, electro boots.
Yeah, fireball and electro boots. They're definitely electro boots definitely number 1. Fireball number 2. Those are the 2 strongest pieces of equipment right now. And then I would say individually, the earthquake boots and the spiky ball are good, or maybe even great, but they're not insane unless they're paired together. The earthquake boots and the spiky ball feel too strong together.
Really?
Yeah, if you can get your king into the middle of a base without having to use his ability, until then so the spiky ball plus the earthquake boots, if they're maxed, will one-shot every building in the game except for the town hall, and the town hall's left with just a little over 1,000 HP left. So like 1 or 2 hits from anything will kill it. So it really is such, insane. Like, you just pop one ability and a giant scary part of the base is gone. So together they feel really strong, but individually they're really not. The spiky ball's pretty good, but the earthquake boots maybe not as good.
Yeah, I just maxed my earthquake boots. I had the gauntlet on there, and to just kind of like replace, I'm figuring out this equipment stuff, too, like, because of that. Like, at first I could only have like 1 or 2 pieces, and then all of a sudden, then I can get my 3rd piece. But then, so it's like I'm slowly moving in, kind of like with the pets, because I went through 15, and it really went through town halls really fast over the last year. What about for the queen?
The queen, I think probably the magic mirror is, the healer puppet is so good. The healer puppet you basically use with every army. So definitely level that up to 18 if you don't have it. The magic mirror is probably her tied for first or maybe second best piece of equipment. The magic mirror is insane. Having 3 queens raged up in the middle of the base, she'll destroy any building in a split second. And the giant arrow is so good right now too, because the invisibility towers are becoming very popular, and obviously that triggers those to make it so that they almost don't even exist. So the giant arrow is another very good piece of equipment, but all of the other equipment on the queen, I would say just don't even worry about. There's some good things, like the frozen arrow. It's not as good now.
I haven't been doing that one. I was looking at the arrow, because that was the other piece of equipment. I think I'll focus somewhere else, just because, for right now, because I have other pieces that I'd rather do first. The likelihood of me moving that in, but you have to be pretty precise with that arrow. Right? It's
a lot easier than you think. So the invisibility towers, I would say, so for most of the attack, I guess it depends on the type of attack that you do. If you're doing an air-based attack like mass dragons, and you want to snipe an air defense or a sweeper, by the way, you have to have at level 12 the giant arrow to snipe a sweeper, and level 9, I think, to snipe a sweeper, and level 18 to snipe an air defense. So it has to be maxed. But it's not as difficult. Most people, for some reason, they just line up their sweepers and their air defenses, where if you put the queen right on the corner, it will snipe one of those. But if you come into an invis base where like the invis tower's in the middle, as long as the arrow hits any one of the buildings that the invisibility tower covers, it will activate the invisibility tower. So it really is not a very hard piece of equipment to use. It's more intimidating than it is difficult to use, for sure.
Yeah. I have a little bit of anxiety from the old days, where it's like, that one thing goes wrong right away. It's just,
Yeah.
it's super dependent, on the golem
Yep.
drop or something like that. So I kind of steer my armies away from that. And in those situations right now, I am not in the mind space where I can calmly assess, where the arrow is going to go. But I'm also not running air armies or anything, which I think is the arrow's a little bit better, is used more for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost a must-have piece of equipment if you're running an air army. It's so good to be able to snipe 1 or 2 air defenses plus a sweeper plus activate an Invis tower if you need to. It's a jack of all trades, giant arrow.
Then I'll hold off on, because I'm working on my upgrading my troops. What do you recommend? Like if you're out there and let's say somebody's a town hall 15 or going into 16 and 17, what do you prioritize? Like, in what troops are your
Far as troops right now,
upgrade order? I guess that's kind of a really tough question, because I guess it's a lot on what people
I would say, but as a general consensus right now, it feels like dragons are just really, really strong at basically every town hall level. Hydra specifically, so the pairing between the dragons and the dragon riders, very, very strong. So that you can't go wrong upgrading your dragons or your dragon riders. Root riders are another very, very popular attack strategy at any town hall where they're available, which actually I think is they are available at 15. Only a level 2. But that's obviously level 15, you only need level 2. So root riders with the Valkyries is another really, really strong combination. Hogs are okay. They're pretty good. They definitely take a little bit more skill to be able to utilize really, really well. And they're going to rely on the heroes more than the other armies. Where Hydra, I would say if you're a casual player wanting to be the best that you can be, 3-star the most amount of bases, Hydra's probably going to be your best bet. It's going to rely the least amount on the hero equipment. It's fairly cheap in terms of hero equipment. You don't really need any epic equipment. The king maybe a little bit, but I guess you can run the minion prince instead of the king now too. So
he's a whole new disaster waiting to happen for me. Like I've just been trying to keep him down. Like I haven't played with him very much, and just seeing him on attacks, like
he seems a little bit like the fireball to me, but in hero form, where it's like a high risk, high reward type hero. If you can get him to get a very good ability and live for a while, he is one of the better heroes. But that's so hard to do, because if he is targeting something and then like a ground skeleton comes close to him, he'll just turn randomly. And then if he uses his ability, he'll shoot it off in a really random way that doesn't really help you at all. So it becomes useless almost. Or if he runs into mines, obviously that's a big risk. So it's high risk, high reward.
Like where you'd put him, like you kind of like the arrow type thing. Like it has to be super. What kind of equipment would you want to see on him?
That's a good question. Actually, I haven't really thought about that. Something that makes him a little bit less susceptible to air mines. Obviously, his little henchman ability helps a little bit with that, because he spawns 2 additional little minion things that can help tank some of the mines. But
you'd happily dump that for something else.
Yeah, I guess I don't. Maybe something that allows him to become. Well, I guess he's not really a support hero. He's there to do damage. I guess he kind of supports a little bit by freezing the defenses, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard. I guess I haven't really thought about that much.
No, I haven't either. No, I haven't written it down, but as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah.
We know that they are going to introduce new equipment for him. I don't know when that will happen, but they have said that they do have equipment for him in the works. And so when that happens again, I don't know, but so soon-ish, I would assume. They usually don't announce things too in advance.
Yeah, because like thinking about him, like for right away, I'm like, I'm just going to keep him down. I'm not going to work him in, because I feel like in other people that I've talked to have mentioned this as well, that it's that like the next equipment is probably what'll make him right. Like
I could see that
he's kind of in that zone, and then like if you just had the king and the the initial ability for the king, the barbarians, and one other thing. Like the next thing that we get, or the next couple things, will kind of turn him into something a
Yeah, and
little bit more specialized.
we don't have an epic equipment for him either. So maybe one of the equipments will be an epic equipment that will be really good, because he's on the verge of being
Greatness.
one of the best heroes of the game, but he's just not, like, it just needs a little something. I don't know exactly what, but he feels like you use him in the right way, he feels really, really strong, but it's hard to make that happen all the time. So maybe some piece of equipment that they introduce will change that.
Yeah. I don't know. I had a fire trail, like raining fire or something.
Yeah, there you
Like
go.
he was dripping fire, like kind of like the electro boots in a sense, maybe.
Yeah, some sort of aura type. Yeah, damage. Yeah, I see what you mean.
What do you hope they introduce this year?
Ooh, well, I think the thing I would hope for the most is some sort of anonymity in Legend League, where you cannot find, or you don't see the names of the players that you're rating.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, that way, because some players will lose on purpose to their friends in higher Legend League, and it boosts the other player, right? So it's called win trading, but again, that's a hard problem to solve. But that would be maybe the only issue.
I never thought about that as like just going anonymous. So
yeah,
and
so
that would help you with the
base,
bases
you don't see
too,
their name.
right?
Yeah,
so you wouldn't have to like get burned so many times.
Yeah,
but I suppose
actually,
you're posting stuff.
I think maybe they would make it to where you saw who it was after you rated them, but and I'm sure there would be ways that people could find loopholes, like I'm going to place this decoration here, so if you see that, yeah, that's me.
Yeah,
but yeah, well, I mean,
oh
it
yeah,
would still help.
Yeah,
people are clever. We adapt really well, right? And so
right.
I'm sure they still find ways to do it.
If you put one thing up, it's like, how do you figure out a way around it? It's like they're always constantly having to. What else would you like to see in 2025? Any troop desires?
I want, the thing I want more than anything is for them to make the lava loon puppet usable. Right now, it is just awful.
It's just sitting there.
Fun. Yeah, it's fun, but yeah, I don't recommend anybody spend any ores on that equipment right now. Maybe they'll find a way to make it useful in the future, but right now,
a little pity dump if I have a little bit extra, so it's up to like
level
8,
something like that. Yeah, but don't waste any of your starry ore on it, I would say. It's such a fun piece of equipment. I've tried maybe more than anybody to find ways to make it useful, other than Gaku. I don't know if you know who that is. He's found ways to make it work, but I don't know that is better than another piece of equipment that he'd have used anyway. But yeah, and I wish that they would find a way to make that useful, because I was so excited for it to come out, and then the very first day I traded, I was like, well, this just feels terrible.
Yeah.
I don't
know about you, but when it was coming out, I kept thinking, like, it was around that Halloween time, or it was Halloween season, or whatever the season was, and it felt like it was part of a story, like you had these Halloween troops, but that I kind of thought were going to be introduced, or at least some of them, because you had that like kind of town hall theme, like around that time. And so when they introduced that, but didn't follow up with something else, I felt like there was something just missing. Like I thought they were going to at least introduce like the lava loon fully into the game at that point.
Yeah, if they did that, they would have to make it quite a bit weaker than what it was, because they're pretty strong. But yeah, I think maybe they can buff it in an indirect way, like increasing the clone space, because right now it can only clone 2 lava loons per clone spell, and maybe if they increase the spell space for the next level, maybe this will happen. I don't know for sure, but they're going to be increasing levels for a lot of things, I think, in February at the February update. So I think maybe we'll get a new clone spell level then. But if we do get a new clone spell level, it will allow you to have 3 lava loons per clone spell instead of 2, which is an indirect buff to the lava loon puppet. So maybe people will find it useful then. We'll have to see. I don't anticipate it making it that much stronger, but you never know.
What updates do you anticipate in February.
Yeah, so this is purely speculation, right? I don't know anything because I'm not a super creator. I'm just like a regular little creator. I think that they'll probably introduce the new levels for the rest of the buildings.
That's what I was thinking.
Like the Teslas and Monolith and whatever else there is that we need to finish off. It looked like they're going to add another pet into the game. It looked like there was another level on the pet house. So we'll see. I have no clue what that would be.
Yeah. I remember seeing that building, like, and I watched one video where they were showing like the different things. And there was that building was different. There was mortars and expos, I think, too, in that.
Yes, the expos need another level. Yep. And then I'm sure some of the troops that didn't receive levels at the beginning of Town Hall 17, like the balloons, maybe the Lava Hound. I'm pretty sure the Lava Hound didn't get another level. Other things like that. Maybe they'll adjust the thrower a little bit because the thrower feels fairly weak.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
It feels like the last two Town Halls that came out, right? 16 with the Root Rider, that was really, really strong. 15 with the Electro Titan, that was really, really strong. And still they're pretty strong. But yeah, the throwers, they definitely struggle. Their attack rate is very slow.
And I love
make them work. Yeah, people can make them work. And they are fun to use. But yeah, I mean, people can make anything work.
Right? Yeah. I was like trying to put them in my army, trying to do this and trying to figure it out. But that's, again, like it was kind of one of those troops where it's like missing a piece to something else, like how I'm going to work it in. But if you can use them right, they're great.
Yes, they are. The longer the range something has, the more difficult it is to funnel and keep in a direction that you want it to be. So like ground or like melee units, they're very easy to funnel, right? You don't have to funnel anything inside of a wall because they can't get there anyway, and they'll go kind of wherever you want. But like the clean becomes a little bit more difficult, and then the throwers become extremely difficult, and bowlers are kind of hard too because of that. But if you can get the funnel right with the throwers and keep them all clumped up together, they are fairly good. But that's so difficult to do.
Yeah, and usually I find if they do all right, they'll be the ones at the end. Yeah, if I've lost everything. But yeah, it's the funnel part that I've had problems with. But I don't know. For me, I'd like to try these armies that I just like the troops a lot. Or like
they're a cool unit.
Try to figure it out. But that one I was having problems doing some Electro Titan, and thrower attacks, which they were kind of working, but
the range on the thrower, sometimes they'll hit Infernos or the Monolith like super far away, and I'm like, okay, I could see how this could be useful sometimes, but then other times where they split up and they die individually and they're not funneling right, or one walks and takes all of the healers with him and none of the healers go to the middle where I want them to. Okay.
It's almost like they just have to be in that raid, like, because I use the Rage Vial or Rage Gem or whatever. Yeah. And it's like if they're not raged, and same with because I do this Super Bowler attack, that if they're not raged, it's like it's just not going to work for me, and so if I can make it work one day, but they'll introduce another troop, and then all of a sudden things can work. Do you think we'll get another troop this year?
Oh, that's a good question. We did get 2 for Town Hall 16. I don't know. If we do, it might be a Dark Elixir troop.
Yeah. I think that was another of the buildings, was like a Dark Elixir.
Yeah, so maybe they will. It feels like, though, this second half of the Town Hall 17 update is coming much more quickly than the second half of the Town Hall 16 update did. And I don't actually remember the day that they released the rest of the Town Hall 16 stuff, but I felt like it was like May or June.
It was a little bit long.
I feel like, they're going right at Town Hall 17.
Is that when they did introduce the
Druid? Is that
Druid, and then like the what's it? Not the boost, the supercharge, right? Is that like the second part of it?
I think the supercharge came a little bit later on, probably around August or September, maybe even a little bit later than that. Man, I can't remember exactly, but they definitely didn't come all at the same time.
Well, and so for me, with the update coming and thinking about it, kind of how I'm preparing, and it might help somebody is, I have thought, you know, every time they introduce a new level on something, the upgrade times, unless I'm completely wrong, shrink, right, for the levels below it.
Yeah, almost every time. But yeah.
So what I've been doing is like I've been just working on, because everybody's hitting with air and stuff, like working on getting my traps caught up and things, and then holding off on finishing out my mortars and Teslas. And I looked at all those buildings on there that have, you can go to them, and then if you, it'll say supercharge, but it'll say ending soon at
Yeah.
the bottom. And so then I think you can see that tells you which ones are the buildings that are going to get the upgrades. So like
Yeah. So
the Teslas don't have
mortars.
that.
Well, yeah,
Or not
so
the Teslas,
the
but
mortars,
the Infernos.
the Teslas, the Expos. Oh yeah. I think the Inferno was the one building that I didn't see another level for.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
So maybe they'll be okay again. But yeah, don't upgrade if you're maxed. Don't supercharge your Expos, your Teslas, your mortars, because they'll just go away here in probably a month, less than a month anyway.
Every time I have the impulse, I just wait. I'm like,
yeah,
hold on,
yeah,
they're gonna get me. They're gonna get me again. With that, what do you state of the game overall? You're happy?
Yeah, I really, I know that it's a lot easier to complain about, like, feels like everything's too easy, and I see a lot of comments on my YouTube videos saying that. But from my personal perspective, I enjoy the game much more so right now than I did at Town Hall 15 when the game was more difficult, because I like to use so many different armies. When it was Town Hall 15, I feel like I had to use the one really, really good army that the pros used, and I couldn't vary from that at all, or else I couldn't consistently triple. But right now I can use a wide variety of armies and have fun and still feel like I can be good at the game. So I really enjoy where the state of the game is balance-wise right now. I enjoy it more than I did at Town Hall 15. And I know
That's
it is
awesome.
slightly, so I do enjoy being able to do a whole bunch of different things. And I know there's going to be a lot of the people that are better than me that disagree with that, but that's just, you're never going to be able to make everybody happy. So,
You know, I don't know, because for me, like, just in general, you know, and just everyday, like, clan chat and, you know, stuff I do with the podcast, or even like listening to other things, I don't really hear a lot of people complaining that
yeah,
much.
it's a very small minority, and
Yeah, like compared to, like, let's say 6 months ago or 9 months ago, when, you know, 16 is going, like, we're in the summer and people are complaining. You know what I mean?
every
Like,
day. Yeah.
you would hear, it's just, I'm not hearing that stuff as much. I mean,
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
Right away it was like, is this as hard, right? But I think a lot of that was the upgrading of the weapons, and kind of waiting for that to catch up.
Yep, I think you're exactly right.
But I find it tough. I think it's just, as I'm attacking more, I think maybe it's just the, you know, the comps I'm using, and I'm using a lot of your you know, spirit walk strategy stuff, and, you know, and in the principles, it just seems like there's just more margin for error. Like, if you're doing it and you do it well, at 17, it's gonna feel pretty easy. But if that one little thing goes wrong, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, because
I think you're exactly right. A lot of, like, the electro boots definitely are a little bit of a high risk, high reward thing too, because if you don't pay attention and you don't use the invisibility spell right and she dies early, it's hard to recover from that. A little bit like the fireball. So I understand why those pieces of equipment are very strong, because of the risk reward balance that they have.
I didn't think
obviously. So the potential for those pieces of equipment is insane, but also the risk is kind of insane on some hits too. So I understand why they're as strong as they are. It makes sense. And that's why I think it would be hard to nerf them.
Yeah, because, like, in your video, you know, if you lose the RC, I think you said it's over, and I was like, okay, that explains a few things. Like, maybe I need
to recall strategies.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing, right? And so it's like, and I've been kind of playing it like, in that instance, like, okay, if I lose her, no problem, I've got this part thing, you know. But hearing that piece of it, you know, and maybe I'd pull out the things. It's just like, okay, now I definitely have to, like, because that that little tweak right there, I'm gonna time fail if I do not get her. And that's been my problem. Like,
Yeah.
overall, my big problem has been, with the spirit walk stuff is getting in. And then because it's very hard for me to like predict her pathing, or I have a good sense of it, but people are countering it.
Yeah.
And so she ends up somewhere where I don't, takes out stuff that I didn't necessarily want her to do. And so then I've kind of have to readjust my entire plan. Like, and maybe we'll lose 2 or 3 seconds, maybe a couple more sometimes, just when I'm like, wait a second. And then I time fail on the end. And
yeah, I would
think
say with
that's
the Royal
practice,
Champion,
but
yeah, any of those times where you're doing a spirit walk of any kind, if things look like they're starting to get south, don't be scared to use 1 or 2 more invisibility spells just to make sure she doesn't die. I promise you are going to get so much more value from being able to recall your Royal Champion, even if she doesn't get 2 or 3 more buildings before you recall her, than if she dies and you don't get to have her with the main army again. So if I'm doing a spirit walk of any kind and she hits the wrong direction and she's below half health, I just immediately recall her. I don't even risk it.
you
Not
go below
worth it.
half. You're like
If she's below half at all and she runs out of the invisibility spell and I see any scary defenses in the area, I'm like, yeah, just get out of there. Not even risk it. So,
Yep.
Or if she's above half health, I'll usually just hurry and invis again or something, even if I waste an invisibility spell, because it's worth it. One spell is not worth losing your Royal Champion.
Yeah. Okay. That makes life a little bit easier, because
so just do what you can to keep your Royal Champion alive.
And I think it's, and again, it's like, for me, like, and I look at strategies and you kind of put all these things together, and then it's like, you've kind of got it all, you're kind of running, okay, because of this, and you just almost have to go back to basics, or like the foundational thing. And so like on that part of my attack where I've been really struggling was like, is it worth getting this piece or saving the RC? And so
there's not a single defense or a single spell in the game worth your Royal Champion. So if you need to waste another spell to keep her alive or recall her immediately, that's worth it. Even if you think there's a small chance you might get another defense or another, it's not worth it. The Royal Champion, with the Electro Boot specifically, because she'll heal herself back up to full health eventually, she doesn't get into range of anything. She provides so much value.
Okay. Yeah, I feel that way, right? Like, and I think it was like it was like kind of a piece of the recall, throw the spear and then recall after that, from inside the base. And so then I start to kind of use that strategy, with the new strategy, right? And just kind of forget about, or kind of forget to disregard some of the previous advice, like doesn't apply to this situation, I guess. And so
and I do like the Rocket Spear with the Electro Boots a lot.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a good combo.
Have you seen it used well with the Hog Puppet?
The Electro Boots, yeah. What it does is it allows her to have like a get out of jail free card. If she's getting into the base and she gets into a hairy situation, you get a lot of a health boost or regeneration from the Hog Puppet. So it will give her a lot of health back. Plus she goes invisible for a second and you get a bunch of hogs to tank for you. So it's kind of like a little get out of jail free
Excellent.
So I do see people using that. Yes.
Not
as common, but
I just think it would be a fun combo to me. Like, like get into the base with the walk, drop some hogs, head out. So those are the kind of things that I like to just play around with. So we should probably wrap up. One thing I always ask, what are you reading, watching, listening to? Any one of those things?
Well, I don't watch a whole lot of anything other than kind of the YouTube in my little community and stuff. So,
awesome.
People like Aki, I don't know if you know who that is. I watch his videos sometimes, or Lexnos, or some of the other pro matches and things like that. So I do watch them. As far as Reading, yeah, I probably should read more, but I don't.
No,
And
that's all
then
right.
listening to, usually if I'm at work, I just listen to just a popular podcast like Joe Rogan or something, but that's
Cool.
pretty much that.
You know what? I almost forgot before we do a quick shout out. I did have just like 2 questions.
Yeah, let's hear
One
it.
I'll give it to F off air. Chewy wants to know, what's the car in the poster in the background of your videos?
It is, that's pretty funny. It is a fake car. It's not real.
It's a
It
fake
is,
car?
yeah, it's not even a real car. I get people that ask me that all the time, though. It looks really cool. I'm looking at it right now.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
it's fake, not a real car.
That's cool. Number 2, what factors should a player consider when deciding to use air instead of a ground army to hit a TH-17?
Ooh, am I assuming that they're attacking up a town hall level or just from 17 to 17?
17 to 17.
I would say anytime you'd want to use air versus a ground strategy is one, if you struggle funneling. So like if you have a hard time getting your army to go to the middle of the base, air becomes much easier to do that. You can always blink the town hall. Or 2, and maybe the more important of the 2 is the air attacks rely a lot less on your heroes and your hero equipment. So if your hero equipment is underleveled or your heroes are underleveled, air is going to be much better for you because it relies on the hero equipment much less so than the ground armies do. So I would say those 2 situations.
That's a good that sounds like a really good answer. Just because of the advice that I know what people are struggling with in our clan.
Yeah.
I think they would really benefit from or those people that I know that are struggling. Yeah.
Hydra can work, and the only epic equipment that you need for any of your heroes is maybe on the king if you run the king, or maybe the royal champion if you want like the rocket spear or the electro boots. But they can be fine. You can be fine with the hog and the haste file on the royal champion. Hydra's just so good.
Excellent. And the last question. What are your goals for your YouTube channel? Still just to get out of doing the dishes? Question mark.
Well, my wife actually did tell me, I don't know if you watched this or you're asking me.
This is from
coincidence.
This is from Chewy here. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So my wife told me if I get 1 million subscribers, I don't have to do the dishes anymore. So
excellent.
That's the goal.
Well, maybe
no, but I think I would like to. I don't know if this is possible, but I set a goal for 5,000 at the end of last year, and obviously we crushed it. I think 50,000 is not unreasonable. It's difficult, but not unreasonable for the end of this year. That gives me a year to get, it'd be ahead of schedule for what I did last year, but not by a whole lot. So 50,000 is my goal for the end of this year.
I bet you'll double that by
next year. Yeah. Because I crushed the first one, which I thought would be hard. So yeah, I guess you never know, but yeah, that would be my goal.
I would bet. Shout outs.
Yeah, I've got to give 2 shout outs. One to Savage Stars. They're awesome. Always very supportive. They reach out and ask me if I ever need help with anything. I constantly have people showing me new attacks in my clan that I can show off in the videos and teach me how to do them as well. So that helps me a lot when I'm making videos. They're getting together kind of an esports team right now that I'm going to help a little bit with. So you'll see me in some competitive matches here soon.
Excellent.
So I'm excited for that. And then 2, got to give a shout out to Synchronic. I'm somewhat recently became an official content creator for them. And maybe I'll end this by saying they just started their base building server. So for people struggling to defend in higher Legend League, you guys can definitely buy their bases. And as of just literally this last weekend, I got my little code for them. So if you use code ShocK on their server, helps me out a little bit, and they get the 5% off or 10% off, depending on the package that they buy on the bases and stuff. So and Synchronic, for those of you who don't know, is the world championship team that won the whole thing last year. So
yeah, weren't they kind of the underdog? Like nobody really
They so
kind of came out of left field a little bit.
This is probably how I would define that, because one, they actually came in as like one of the higher seeds, but they qualified for the world finals so early on in the year last year that we didn't see them a whole lot through the summer and the fall and the winter. So I think people forgot about them a little bit. because they didn't have to do the qualifiers for the last significant part of the year. So I think that's probably where people get that stereotype or understanding. But they definitely were one of the better teams.
That makes sense.
Going into the thing. So and their base building is definitely what won them the champion. Like they defended everybody. Like that's consistently
I remember hearing about this synchronic attack, and I was in there, looking at stuff on how to do it, and I really liked that. Like it was E-Titan. I think it was your video. Right?
Yep. I did do a video on that. Yeah.
And I was like, I love this attack. It just was, like you said, it's just super fast. You have to get everything down right. Like, right? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
You get everything down right away.
You put the royal champion, the queen, the golem, the siege barracks, all the E-Types. You got to put it down in like the first 10 seconds or else. That way they all complement each other.
I played with that for a long time, but I just couldn't take it into war. I just didn't have it down enough. So then I was like, okay, let me practice the one that I can definitely take in. Any other shout outs?
That's all I could think of.
Well,
5 stars is chronic. So
where should people get a hold of you or follow you or?
Discord would definitely be the best way if you need to get a hold of me for anything. And you can find my Discord on any of my YouTube videos.
And I'll post it in the episode stuff too as well.
But I post basically Legend League videos every day, and I try to explain why I'm doing what I do as I do the attacks. So it becomes a little bit helpful for the people that are watching. Every once in a while, I'll do a more in-depth tutorial, which is more helpful for the people that want to get better at the attacks, but probably not as entertaining for the daily watcher. But that's kind of my channel.
Yeah, I like that how you are going through that. And it helps because you're seeing different examples and you're like, different bases and it's kind of all in that one spot, right? Like for my brain, it works really well. It's great to listen to too. If I'm, if I've got it up here and I'm listening to you talk through the strategy, I might not necessarily be, I'm at work, and I'm just at the keyboard, and I listen to you talk about prioritize this or this, that type of stuff too. So,
and I will say having to articulate that while I'm attacking helps me get better in the game too, because then I start to understand why I have to do what I'm doing. So it helps me as much as it helps you guys, I'm sure.
I notice if I narrate it to myself, I do a little bit better too, because I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna do this and do this, but. I think I agree. Like as a podcaster and stuff too, it's like you get better in interacting with your fans and people and learning from everything. So I think that's awesome.
100%. If you watch my first videos, I'm so awkward when I talk, but you definitely get used to it and get more comfortable for sure.
Do you remember when you started feeling comfortable? Or is it kind of just gradual?
It's a little bit like the YouTube channel growth, right? It just kind of was a slow, steady thing that just got more and more comfortable over time. But when I watch my first videos, I don't want to delete them because I kind of like to visit them every once in a while. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was much more awkward than it is now.
Well, big shout out to you. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. And I really highly recommend your channel. You should check out, subscribe to ShocK. Really interesting stuff. And I look forward to seeing what this next year becomes for you and see where you go with everything. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, and thank you for having me on too. It was a lot of fun.
And thanks for all the hard work. I know that putting out content is not easy, even though it just looks like you're doing one little thing. It takes so many, probably 8 times to 1 hour, right? So 8 hours to 1 hour, I think, of content for me is about
probably close to that. Yeah. Cause I'm trying to practice the attacks and friendly challenges and beings and then doing the hits and then trying to, so it's uploading and editing. Yeah.
So thanks for doing that. It's,
I don't mind it at all. It's fun.
So, you can get a hold of us, get a hold of me, I guess, at clashofclanspodcast@gmail.com or clashofclanspodcast.com. And otherwise, until next time, keep it clashy, everybody. Skilly beep 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 skilly beep.